Are you laying there in the dark, looking around your room? There is good reason why you feel uneasy. Someone is in your house. They are watching you. They are waiting for you to close your eyes. You might not open them in the morning. You might have been murdered by then. Join me as I share with you 5 true late at night horror stories. About a month ago, I was in bed. It was pouring rain outside. It was thundering. My room was dark, very, very dark. Every time the thunder struck, it would light up my room for a moment. A minute had passed, and there was no thunder. I heard my bedroom door open. I clenched my body in terror. I live alone. This was impossible. A few more moments passed as I frantically moved my eyes in the dark, trying to see anything. Then it struck again. In the brief moment of light, I saw a man with a twisted smile standing at the edge of my bed. I screamed. He flew on top of me and plunged a knife into my stomach, deep. His smile widened, and he said to me, "I'm going to eat you." I woke up, sweating and trembling and struggling to breathe. I have a story of the most frightening thing that has ever happened to me. I'm a female, and I was 7 years old. I lived with just my mom after she left my dad. She started dating this nice man that lived on our street, and after I'd say about a month of dating him, he started to stay over at our house at night. He was a dentist and was really funny. He used to joke with me before I went to bed and say things like, "Did you make sure the monster under your bed isn't there tonight? And if he is, just let me know, and I'll beat him up good for you." Well, being the young girl I was, I would sometimes check under my bed just to make sure. One night, he said what he normally said to me, but I responded with, "There are no monsters, and I've checked under my bed, but no monsters were ever there." I told him monsters weren't real. He then looked at me and said, "They are real, and he has seen them, and I need to be careful." That night, I woke up to noises coming from underneath my bed. I was horrified, of course, and I laid there just listening to them. I was too afraid to check under there. The next day, I told him I heard something under my bed, and he told me something along the lines of, "I told you so." That following night, I woke up to the same noises, but this time, I somehow had the courage to look. I stood up on my bed and jumped to my bedroom door and turned the light on. I kneeled down and looked under the bed. My mom's new boyfriend, the dentist, was under my bed smiling at me. He started to say something, but I ran to my mom's room and woke her up. She was very confused, and after that night, I never saw that weirdo again. My brother has told this story many times. When he was about 13 or 14, he was getting to sleep one night. The lights were off. His door was closed. He was falling asleep. All of a sudden, he gets a feeling that he's being watched by someone. The feeling becomes stronger and stronger, so he pulls the covers over his head, curls into a ball, trying not to freak out. He even starts saying the "Our Father, who art in heaven" prayer when a few lines in, he hears a voice right next to him say, "That's not going to help you." He stayed under the covers, shivering with fright. Hello everyone. I have a very creepy story to share with you all. It happened in my own house about 3.5 years ago. I've been divorced for about 10 years now, and this happened one night when my kids were at my house. I was asleep in bed when I heard a noise. The noise was very startling. It sounded like cabinets in my kitchen were being slammed repeatedly. I'll be honest, I was afraid to go check what it was, because I've never heard something like this before in the middle of the night. But my kids were there, and I had to see what it was as fast as possible. When I went out into my kitchen, the noise stopped, but the cabinet door to my pantry was open, which it was never left open. I looked around my house and checked on my kids, but they were both still in bed. My son was awake and had heard the noise too, but my daughter slept through it. I didn't find anyone or any explanation for the noise. I returned to bed and didn't hear anything again that night. The very next night, I was awakened again. The same exact noise, and when I checked it, I came up with nothing once more. Once again, my son had heard it, but my daughter was asleep when I checked on her. I went back to bed and laid there awake and confused for hours. I felt very nervous and scared about what that noise was. The next night, I found out what was making that noise. I was dead asleep when suddenly, right next to my bed, my closet door began violently slamming repeatedly. I jolted awake and turned over to see my daughter standing at the closet, slamming the door over and over. I felt terrified as I saw that she was looking at me and grinning. I jumped out of bed and stopped the door. I looked into her eyes, and she looked like she was not there. She was sleepwalking. The next day, she told me she had no idea anything had happened. What's really unusual is that it never happened again, and as far as I know, she had never walked around in her sleep again. I had fallen asleep on the bed in my work clothes. It had been a really long day. When I awoke, it was dark. I was delirious. I sat up and kicked off my shoes. Just then, I heard the baby on the baby monitor. I picked it up and heard my wife humming. I smiled. She then whispered, "Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep." My smile faded as I turned and saw my wife asleep in our bed. I ran to the baby's room and she was crying. The window was wide open and the screen was laying outside on the grass. It was the most terrifying thing you could imagine.